for your listeners, if they don't know, Robbie listens to full discographies of bands and then ranks them. I get a message from this guy, Nathan, and he says, hey, you should send Robbie something. And I was like, well, I've considered it. I tell him everything that I've told you. And he says, no, trust me, let me buy an album for you to send to Robbie. I send Robbie a copy of Waits Giving. Robbie gets it and he reviews my discography. A few months pass and Robbie makes another video and he's like, here are the most underrated artists, and Fishboy is on the list. I went into the backyard and I made this video that I've since taken down because I think it's super embarrassing, where I was like talking about how bad it feels to be called underrated. I was like, I appreciate, I prefaced everything and I was like, I appreciate Robbie. This is awesome. I appreciate it. But everyone should know that you should probably not call your indie band underrated, because that means you're kind of just saying that they failed on marketing themselves. I should have just said thank you and hung up the phone, you know?
We've already mentioned his name and stuff, previous guest on the show and stuff, Robbie, aka Sporklift and stuff, fantastic music sort of, influencer and stuff, TikToker, YouTuber, Instagrammer as well. I know his Instagram's picked up quite a bit now. You sort of famously and stuff sent him, I believe it was a copy of your album and some other like sort of trinkets, and off the back of that, like your sort of streaming numbers really went up. Like, sort of, how did that all come about?
Yeah, so I saw Robbie, I saw his videos. I started getting them on TikTok in 2022. And I sent him a message. I forgot what I saw. Maybe like a mountain goats or maybe it was a front bottoms thing. But I sent him a message. I said, hey, you should check out my album. I was like, because why not? And he kind of copy pasted a response to me, and it said, hey, I'm doing a thing where if you send me merch, I will review it. And like we talked about my albums previously, they kind of require a little bit of digestion, and you have to listen to them a couple of times to kind of figure out that this whole thing's a story and whatnot. And so I was like, this guy, for your listeners, if they don't know, Robbie listens to full discographies of bands and then ranks them. So he must be listening to, music for, 16 hours a day or something, 12 hours a day. And so I'm thinking like, I probably, if I send him anything, this is not going to work, because he's listening to so much music. He's not going to listen to my stuff twice. Even maybe it requires like maybe 3 times to figure out it's a story. And so I write it off. And I get a message from this guy, Nathan, who ends up being local to my area. And he says, hey, you should send Robbie something. And I was like, well, I've considered it. I tell him everything that I've told you. And he says, no, trust me, let me buy an album for you to send to Robbie. And I'm like, well, okay, if you're going to buy an album, I'll send him one. So I send Robbie a copy of Waits Giving, and I include some paintings and some extra weird stuff. Robbie ends up being in Texas too, so I send him some like Texas-based stuff, a Houston Astros playing card, some Whataburger coupons. And Robbie gets it and he reviews my discography. And his review is basically like, he reviews everything that I sent him, right? He only talks about all the weird extras that I sent. I'm like, well, that backfired. and he ranks my discography, and he puts probably the least essential record I would consider as the first essential record, like this random EP from 2009. I'm like, well, that wasn't a total bust, but it kind of ended up how I thought it would end up. So a few months passed, and Robbie makes another video, and he's like, here are the most underrated artists, and Fishboy is on the list. And Fishboy is the first one he mentions, and he mentions Fishboy along with a bunch of bigger artists. And as he mentions the bigger artists, like, you see the monthly streaming things just go up and up and up. And like, up till that point, I didn't really pay attention to the number of streams I got at all on Spotify, because like, I don't know if you realize this, but the number of like actual streams it takes to make any sort of tangible difference in your life, it's like 0 to like 1,000,000 or something. So like, anything in between, you may as well not even look at it, you know. and so that was me. I was like, I don't, whatever, Spotify, okay. And but for this reason, I watched the whole video and I was like, okay, I'm underrated, but then like, all of these other people that are just exponentially bigger than me are also underrated. and I was like, I have to figure out some kind of reply to this video, because that's kind of how TikTok works. If you want to get people to you know, come over to my page, I have to reply. And I was having this really weird week, really stressful week, and I was like, I went into the backyard and I made this video that I've since taken down because I think it's super embarrassing, where I was like talking about how bad it feels to be called underrated. You know, I was like that I appreciate, I prefaced everything and I was like, I appreciate Robbie, this is awesome, I appreciate it, but you know, it feels, everyone should know that you should probably not call your indie band underrated, because that means you're kind of just saying that they failed on marketing themselves. You know, I was like, so everyone, like, please, let's not call people underrated. And that was just, I should have just said thank you and hung up the phone, you know. Like 6 months after that, he posts a thing in the summer that's like, here's the bands I think that are going to blow up next year, right, in 2023. And it does okay on TikTok, but then it just blows up on Instagram. That one just goes to like almost 1,000,000 on Instagram, and then just boosts my stream. Again, I'm the first one he lists. This guy's going to blow up. And I replied to it with like a song, with my latest song, because he says something like, I just think more Mountain Goats fans need to find Fishboy. And I have a song that we haven't talked about that's like it has a complicated setup, but it's like, the Mountain Goats have a famous song that takes place in Denton, Texas. And as someone who is roughly in the same genre as the Mountain Goats, I get asked about that song all the time, and at shows when people find out I'm from Denton. And so I always joked about, hey, let's write a song about the Mountain Goats' hometown, and then they're going to have to get asked about that song. And so I wrote this whole song that was about getting asked about this lo-fi Mountain Goats song released on a tape. It's called the Best Ever Boombox cassette tape from Durham being where the Mountain Goats live. And anyway, I replied to Robbie's video with that song, and that did very well to me. It did find a bunch of Mountain Goats fans, and yes, my streaming numbers went up a little bit. And then Robbie reposted the video again, and it got 2 million the next time, and my streaming numbers went up a little bit again for a brief moment of time. And it's been nice. Again, like I said, like, you know, anything in between 0 and 1,000,000 is kind of just like there's no money coming from Spotify, so it's just kind of like clout, you know. I've definitely gotten a few orders and a few nice words, but you know, looking at those numbers, probably not good for anyone's health, you know.
Well, hey, they do say it's the whole exponential growth thing, isn't it? As once you start to sort of get up that curve, it doesn't just go up in a straight line, it goes up that way. So that could be the start of, you could be 100,000 listeners next year. You never know.
Sure. I try not to focus on it. But yeah. I mean, anything could happen. They've kind of died down a little bit, but they haven't gone all the way back down to where they were. Um, I am happy for the opportunity that the modern era of social media has brought, and I'm very honestly just trying to put myself out there on a regular basis because uh, the two things are so connected now, and I feel like we do have a short window to where that stuff is gonna go away. Like social media people will stop rewarding you with random virality soon. So I do appreciate that I'm able to find new listeners via putting random stuff out there, finding people like Robbie, and yeah,